Jill Finlayson asks another interesting question. Uh, what are your thoughts on urban poverty alleviation and how those challenges differ from rural poverty alleviation approaches? Well, it's quite controversial. Some people feel that urban poverty and urban slums are totally different. Some people say they're interrelated. I'm part of the group that says there's a distinct relationship. In developing countries, when there is a prolonged drought and people can't pay off their loans, they lose their farms, and then they have no choice but to go into urban slums. If you can improve livelihoods in rural areas, you reduce urban migration. At the same time, conditions in an urban slum are very different than conditions in the village. In the village, you're much more able to survive by getting access to food very often, and shelter is a little bit easier. On the other hand, in the urban area, jobs are frequently available, and that's what makes it attractive for people to move from rural areas to urban areas, the hope of getting a decent job. The thing that connects both urban and rural poverty is the access to jobs is absolutely critical for people earning a comfortable livelihood. The environmental context in the slums is very, very different. In the rural area, you might have access to water from a shallow pond somewhere. It may be contaminated. In urban slums, slum dwellers often tap into city water, which is also contaminated. When you go to the toilet in a rural area, in many rural areas, people just do their business in the fields. It's a little tougher to do that in a slum, but people often do their business on a sidewalk or just beside the sidewalk. It's much more dangerous there in terms of getting diseases. I think one of the areas in India that is an amazing problem is the rapid growth of construction work camps. Those are the modern terrible slums. I visited one in Delhi that had an open ditch, which is their sewer, running into the street. Some of those, many of them have shacks composed of corrugated tin walls and roof, which are furnaces in the heat. Still, people come because they can earn $2 and $3 a day as construction laborers, so they migrate from rural areas during the off-season so they can earn some cash income that they can apply back in the village. So the parts that are the same are the factors that draw people to the slums, and that is the hope of a decent job. And the real opportunities in the slums, more than there are in the rural areas, is many of the slums that I visited are hotbeds of entrepreneurial innovation. There are little shops often in the slums. All the rules are looked at by policemen and so on. They just don't abide by the rules. So there's lots of illegal activity, drugs, and so on. At the same time, there are all kinds of shoemakers and garment industries in the slums and leather tanning and things like that. Depends on the slums. So slums are very, very different. When I visited Darvi, that's a slum that's been around for many generations, and it's now more of a middle-class neighborhood because a lot of the people there have good jobs. It's a part of Bombay, and it's very valuable real estate. So a typical home there has running water and is worth $30,000. If you go to a construction work slum, that is much more basic and like the old slums used to be. And the early formation of slums is much worse. They're much worse living conditions. So there's so many different conditions. They are interrelated because people go to urban slums from the villages, and some of them go back to the villages when there are job opportunities, and the thing that links both is jobs.